back, everyone. I'm joined now by the president of ATV Maine, John Raymond. John, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
I first want to open up by talking about the state of trails in Maine right now. We experienced a couple of really severe storms this winter, and so as trails are opening up across the state, can you speak to the condition of the ones that you've seen so far?
Well, right now, the state date is usually the 15th of May, and a lot of clubs try to make it by the Memorial Day weekend. And there are a lot of trails, especially in western and southern Maine, that had extensive damage last year and then going into the winter. And probably some of them won't even open this year because, as we all know, it takes a lot of money to repair these trails.
Yeah, it certainly does. Now, it also takes a village to do so. Talk about the efforts of local snowmobile clubs in getting these trails ready for the general public.
Well, it was an undertaking last year that it was unbelievable because a lot of these clubs, you got to understand that the funding that comes through this comes through the municipal grant process and stuff, and you have to put into it. You have to figure out what you want to spend that year. Well, what happened last winter was they were hit with a lot of damaged trails, and a lot of clubs went out on their own and spent a lot of money that they weren't guaranteed that they were going to be getting back. So, and as we all know, I always like to say it takes a lot of hot dogs to keep this stuff going. So, they work hard, they do fundraisers, they do, suppers, everything going to try to keep these clubs going. And it's an all volunteer process. So it's immensely.
I want to circle back to that, but first, talking about money coming into trails. Recently, the Maine Trails Bond was passed. That's going to provide $30 million across the board for trails in Maine, not just to strengthen the ones that we already have, but to build new ones. How do you anticipate the Maine Trails Bond benefiting ATV trails in the state?
Well, this is something that's never happened before in the state of Maine. First time the state of Maine has actually put or will be putting money if the bond gets passed in the trails. Before, it's been all supported by registrations from snowmobiles and ATVs and by the RTP funds. So now with this bond, it's set up to $7.5 million a year for 4 years. And it's also broke down, 25% will be going towards motorized recreation, 25% non-motorized recreation, and 50% to multi-use. So there are like trails like the trail in Millinock, it's a multi-use trail. So we could use funds both motorized, and if we needed more, we could use it under the multi-use. So it's a good thing to get started because New Hampshire, Vermont, New Brunswick, Quebec, they're all out spending us on trails. And with a lot of people don't know, with snowmobiling and ATV in the state of Maine, it's a $1.3 billion industry. So we've got to make sure that we can, try to keep this moving along. Last winter, probably the worst winter I've seen in a long time. Our club just got a new groomer, and we were only able to groom 3 weeks last year. So snowmobile industry took it on the nose this year, and I believe the registrations were down over 13,000. So that's huge too, because registrations are where they get the money to spend the following year.
Right. You talk about the collective effort going into maintaining these trails. If people, the general public, but riders want to get involved and help out, if they're saying, well, I'd like to help this process, how can they do so? How do you get involved with the local club?
Well, the number one thing you can do is, and I know a lot of people don't want to go out and do the actual work because they've paid a lot of money for a side-by-side or a snow sled and they want to ride it. So we really need people to join clubs because that money that comes into the club helps the club stay, alive, and it helps them to be able to put money into the trails. So it's all about money. Without the money, the trails won't be there. And also, a word to the younger people, we're an aging industry right now. And snowmobile and ATVing, I don't know what's going to happen in the next 5-10 years if we don't start getting some people from the bottom, the younger kids coming into it. So we're trying to reinvent the wheel on that a little bit, and we've got to see what we can do to try to bring them into the fold. But majority of the clubs that I go to across the state, it's very elderly.
Yeah.
So.
All right, so a message for younger riders to get more involved. John Raymond from ATV Maine, thanks so much for joining us today.
And thank you.
All right, and your full forecast is coming up next. Stay with us.